Hello, BookThinkHers family. Today's book review is going to come from Daring Greatly by Dr. Brené Brown. The subtitle reads, How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent, and Lead. This was such an interesting read for so many reasons. The content of this book is based on more than a decade of research and hundreds of interviews. Brown uses her findings to better define, explain, and help us understand the concepts of shame, weakness, and vulnerability. Vulnerability being the core idea here. In essence, vulnerability is defined as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And when you begin to recognize that the inability to express and connect with your vulnerability actually keeps you at a safe distance from everyone around you, and considering that as humans we are hardwired to connect with others, leaning away from this is the true weakness. Leaning into vulnerability actually determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose, with the overall goal being this idea of wholehearted living, which is a way of engaging with the world from a place of worthiness. Throughout the book, she breaks down a lot of these ideas and sort of recognizes that each little section is only one variable in contributing to wholehearted living. She discusses the scarcity mindset of our culture, which is the concept that we never have enough or we never are enough. Comparing our lives, marriages, careers, etc. to others, or even media-driven visions of perfection. She says we hold our reality up to a fictional version of reality, which I just found so interesting. She also helps us better understand the concept of shame and how we go about combating it. I found this section to be absolutely fascinating because she does an amazing job of breaking down the way that men and women experience shame differently. As a woman, much of our feelings of shame and unworthiness stem from this unattainable desire for perfection and conflicting ideals such as being perfect but not taking time away from anything like your partner, your children, or work, or the ideal that everything needs to be and look effortless, or the ideal that being feminine means that you must stay small, sweet, quiet, and modest. And falling short in any of these categories are a major driver of shame in women. But what was so interesting to me as well was her discussion of shame in men, where many of their feelings stem from the idea that never showing any weakness or fear, and that a lifetime of repressing that vulnerability and weakness culminates in a lot of anger or the tendency to just completely shut down in these situations. So for me, I've only ever understood shame from the perspective of a woman, and it was pretty eye-opening for me to sort of begin to get a better understanding of what the male perspective is. So further on, she discusses our vulnerability armory, or the shields that we use to avoid being vulnerable. The biggest one that stuck out to me was perfectionism, because this is something that I've always struggled with. And what I learned to understand is that perfectionism is not the same thing as striving for excellence. It's not about healthy achievement or growth. It's actually a defense mechanism. The belief that we can do things perfectly or be perfect, we can somehow avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame. It's addictive and it's self-destructive. And I learned some great tools for managing this issue. And much of this comes back to self-kindness, humanity, mindfulness, and you guessed it, vulnerability. And learning not to tie our self-worth so much to what we produce. An imperfect product that you show the world is so much better than a perfect one that you never release, post, or share with anyone. So overall, Brené Brown teaches us so much about cultivating courage, compassion, and connection by embracing these vulnerabilities within ourselves. So to finish up, I'll share my absolute favorite little tidbit from the book. At one point, she quotes the Leonard Cohen song, Hallelujah, which I absolutely love, where he says, "Love is not a victory march, it's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah." She points out that love is the purest form of vulnerability. If you replace the word love with vulnerability in that line, it's just as true. Vulnerability is courage beyond measure. It is daring greatly. And my favorite quote from the whole book, Brown says, "And often the result of daring greatly isn't a victory march, as much as it is a quiet sense of freedom mixed with a little battle fatigue." So this book has a ton of value for anyone looking to get uncomfortable in the name of being a better parent, partner, leader, etc. When you put yourself out there, you risk getting hurt. But having the courage to show up and be seen will be significantly more fulfilling and satisfying than staying hidden. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'm excited to read more some of Brené Brown's work. Let me know if you've read this one or if vulnerability is something that you want to work on. I'm all ears. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk again soon. Okay, bye everyone.